This is the first chat for GEI. We're recording this on February 8th, 2004. It's 10 a.m. London time and just after 6 p.m. Hong Kong time. And we're going to talk for about 1 hour. And I hope to get most of the defined agenda items done in the first half hour. I know one or two people might have to leave, so we're going to try and get through that fairly quickly. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an intro on each of the 6 people on the call. And that's a very short intro. And I'll start with my own. So I'm GEI chat leader, Dr. Bub. I'm an investor, writer, and researcher based in Asia. I run the GEI website. I'm here because I have a general interest in cryptos and also in maybe redesigning our monetary system. Pretty grand goal. And what I'm here for is I want to learn more, test some ideas, and maybe start to build a network to address the issue of looking at monetary reform. And I'm also hoping that this will help kickstart GEI's presence on YouTube, and that is in fact why we're recording. By the way, whoever's typing, I wonder if you could mute yourself when you're doing that, because that would make it a little easier for recording. Finally, in terms of expertise, I have pretty good, maybe even excellent expertise for a non-user of Skype, but compared with regular users and crypto geeks, I'd have to consider myself of moderate expertise. So, Hadrian, I know you have an intro, so would you mind going next?
Fine. I'm an IT consultant in banking. I've worked for banks since about in the 1980s, when I used to work for Midland Bank in the city, before it became HSBC. Then I worked mainly in Germany with banks on the internet side, with internet systems. I'm based in London, or on the outskirts of London, and I have an event center here, bed and breakfast. And every month I do workshops on cryptocurrency since last month. I've been involved with money systems, complementary currencies, and organizational change for the last 10 years. I'm interested in setting up a DAO, which is a distributed autonomous organization, which is part or the next phase of the Bitcoin protocol, using crypto 2.0 like Ethereum, which I can talk about. I'm interested in designing and launching innovative cryptocurrencies networks. Expertise, I have good IT skills over the last 20, 30 years. My crypto skills are improving over the last year and a half, and I'm getting quite good at explaining this stuff to people who are not geeks. That's me.
Thank you very much. On my screen, maybe I can ask Randy to go next.
Okay. Hi, I'm Randy. My background is slightly complicated, but what's relevant to this is that I'm a computer scientist and I've been involved with technology and the internet and various related things for quite a long time. And Michael, was it me that you wanted to talk later about some of the market issues?
Yes, I would. In the agenda, I'll have Hadrian. Do you have time? Do you have another 10 minutes or so?
Yes, I do. So I'll wait to discuss those issues in a few minutes.
That's great. Leon?
Oh, hi. I'm from southwestern Australia, and I'm a nurse, and I'm exactly what Hadrian said. I'm not a geek, but I'm very interested in cryptocurrencies, so it's actually been quite difficult for me to learn how to even buy them. So this conversation is going to be very interesting to me. I'm still working on comprehending how to understand the whole cryptocurrency, but it's exciting. I really like it, and I like the idea of a decentralized currency. So that's why I'm here. I'm also interested in other things like self-sufficient living. So that's what I'm aiming for.
Okay. Positive Deviant, I'd like you to go next, but I just want to let you know you've got a very sensitive mic, so I can hear you typing. And maybe
Sure, okay.
maybe you want to mute after doing an intro.
Yeah, will do.
And then you'll be able to type while we're talking here. So if you don't mind, maybe you can go next as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I post on Green Energy Investors as Positive Deviant. I'm based on the west coast of Scotland. My work, I mean, I work for the government. It's not, there's no relation to what we're going to discuss today. The reason I'm here today is really I'm someone who's fascinated in financial markets, not just financial markets, but I've got an interest in the Bitcoin market, really as a casual observer. Interested in seeing how realistic a proposition it is. I became interested in financial markets a few years ago, and really I set up a company to trade, and I do a bit of trading now as well. And I see this as, Bitcoin as an opportunity to discuss, what makes a good currency, that sort of thing.
Great. Renu?
Hi, I'm Renu. I'm in Hong Kong, and my expertise is really in the in investment banking, fund management industries, and more recently angel investments. I'm curious about this because because I do see increasingly one or two investment opportunities coming my way, which look at use the Bitcoin as their source of currency for trading. So I'd like to try and understand a little bit more about this.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think we'll move on now to the general agenda. Well, not the general agenda, the specific one, I should say. And the first item on that one is a review of the very interesting market we've had in Bitcoins for the last few days. Adrian, can you do that?
Yes, I can, yeah. Okay, it's if I look at the chart now, price on Bitstamp is $707. About 10 days ago, it was $900. And of course, a year ago, it was $20. The current market is depressed because of three factors. Firstly, Apple Computer decided to let Bitcoin applications run on the iPhone, which is a big deal because in the States, 40% of smartphones are Apple, iOS. Here in Europe, it's about 12%. And because people have been using these phones for applications for buying and selling Bitcoins, it's quite a big deal. Also, the largest Bitcoin exchange, GOX in Tokyo, has been having big problems, and now they're not letting people take out the Bitcoins. For a while, it's taken 6 weeks to get money out. I mean, dollars, euros, and so on. So they've been slowly kind of dying. From about a year ago, they were the largest exchange. And the third factor is certain governments, Indonesia, for example, and Russia, both say that Bitcoin is not legal for their citizens. So these are all sort of negatives. But this is how Bitcoin works, that when there's this sort of sentiment, people who hold coins kind of panic and the price goes down. It's a very thinly traded market. So small variations will bring down the price quickly or bring it up quickly. So it's very interesting. To me, it's a buying opportunity because it was at $1,200 and it'll go back to $1,200. And many say it might go up to 2,000 or 3,000 this year. So that's where we are today.
I have a few questions. I'd like to allow people to ask one or two questions each, maybe. I'll jump in with the first one. How much is moving? I mean, the market seems to have moved from one exchange to another because Mt. Gox was by far the largest. How disruptive is that for the traders and the people involved, Adrian?
Not particularly, because for months now, Mt. Gox has been seen as being unreliable. So people have been shifting over. And today we've got 30% of the market with Bitstamp, who are in Slovenia, and about 15% with Mt. Gox. So it's no longer a major player.
Okay. So, although some people probably sold in panic, but the market price seems to have been moving up. I mean, I think we hit a low of 620.
Yeah, something like that, yes. On empty GOGs, although that doesn't actually mean anything. If you can't take your money in or out, if you can't take out your bitcoins, then there's no meaning in the empty GOGs price, effectively.
I think I saw that on Bitstamp, but it
Yeah.
was only there for a few seconds.
Always
And,
happens because people have a lot of limit orders which are activated at these prices.
Okay. Other questions for Hadrian now? No one?
Hadrian, what's the overall liquidity across all markets for Bitcoin?
It's very, very hard to say, but probably a few millions.
I mean, I think a few weeks ago we were seeing liquidity, daily liquidity in the range of maybe 20 million plus. Seems to be a lot less than that now, and that would be the dollar. Is that the dollar amount? I think that's the dollar amount I saw.
Yeah, the dollar market's the most liquid, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean the dollar volume of trades, and most of it's in dollars. Actually, one last question from me on this. You say most of the liquidity is in U.S. dollars. Is it true the second largest currency is Chinese yuan?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay. And then after that, presumably euros.
Euros, yeah. But for example, Bitstamp I send them euros and then they convert to dollars and trade in dollars. So they convert it. So they convert all their currencies to dollars and that's their trading currency.
That's the real market. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if there are no more further questions for Hadrian, I'd like to move on now. I think Randy's going to say had some very interesting comments, which I'd like him to repeat here, about the certain situation that he's observed in the market.
Okay, so this isn't my own research. This is from some things I've picked up. First one is from FT Alphaville, where there was a very interesting quote that 47 individuals between them hold 30% of all Bitcoins. Another 900 hold a further 20%. And the next 10,000 hold 25%. And a further million hold about 20%. And 5% are lost. So if I just unwind a bit, the thing that really struck me was that 47 people own about 30% of Bitcoins, or you could say 930 people own 50% of all Bitcoins. Now, that's based on Bitcoin addresses. So you can't actually necessarily say it's 47 individuals, because it may be one individual with 2 or 3 accounts or addresses.
Yes, I'd like to, just as an illustration of that, there is a place, you're probably coming to this, Randy, but there is a place where you can get a list of the account numbers for the top 100 and 500 holders. And I went through and posted the top 20 on GEI, and I found within that 20 a cluster of 4 or 5 that all have the same holdings. And when you add up that cluster, it's very similar to the amount owned by the Winklevoss twins. And so I was speculating that cluster of 4 different account addresses or 5 different account addresses might actually be held by those 2 guys or their companies. So we may see other evidence of that, and that 900 or whatever it is might actually boil down to a much smaller number of people.
And I'm really glad you've done that, Michael, because that confirms some of the suspicions I've got. So the next issue with that is to make the maths easy, let's use 40 people owning about, or let's use 30 people owning about 30%. So each person owns about 1%. So I think the market cap of Bitcoin was around about 10 billion. It's a little bit less now. But that means that each of those people are holding, or each of those accounts are probably holding $100 million worth. I've seen this kind of market squeeze before in things like small caps. And what I think you really have to do with something like Bitcoin is ask yourself the question, is the market price a free and open price, and for what size transactions? And if any of the big holders were to dump their position, what happens to the market price? Now, I've been in that kind of situation with small caps or mid caps in the past, where you can move the market. And I wonder whether part of the issue with Bitcoin right now is that there's effectively a squeeze up in the market as long as that free float stays tight. But if and when some of those big holders start liquidating some of their positions, could you lead to a complete collapse in the price? That's number one. And the other part about that is that even if they are different people holding it, are they collaborating? Because you can think of it like a bunch of pirates on a ship. As long as they all work together, they get a bigger value for their treasure because they'll attack more ships, etc. But there's always the risk that one of the pirates will steal the treasure and jump off the ship. In the same way, there's always the risk that the first guy out of those $100 million holders or whatever decides to jump ship. As soon as one guy starts to do that and the market's no longer controlled or tight and the prices start collapsing, it's in everyone's interest to jump ship quickly. And so my worry would be, whatever the long-term value of Bitcoin, there could be very, very significant short-term squeezes. Put that together with the exchanges having liquidity issues, because what's happening to Mt. Gox, I'd suggest, is a classic exchange having liquidity issues. And I think that this is going to be an incredibly highly volatile market.
Yeah, I want to add another observation to what you just said, and then I'd like to talk about lost coins. And I think Hadrian might have an interesting story to tell us, which he's mentioned to me briefly on the GEI site. But first, before we move there, I did notice that the largest holder, single holder of Bitcoins is, I think it's a drug.
Silk Road, wasn't it?
Sorry, if you remember the exact name, maybe you can say it.
Silk Road, wasn't it?
Well, Silk Road is in the top 50. I think it's number 35 or something. And there's the number one holder with about 2% of the coins. I'm sorry, it's RSG. I think it has something to do with the drug investigation, and it might be related to Silk Road as well. But those are confiscated coins. And the whole Silk Road thing, I think, adds a very interesting dimension to this, because actually these coin holders are not really anonymous. Each of the coin holders can be identified by their address, and we don't know who's associated with that address. But it did occur to me that the NSA, or perhaps now the drug, the people who seized the Silk Road may well know who some of those bigger addresses are, because if they've done business with Silk Road and asked drugs to be sent out or money to be sent to them, then somebody who investigated Silk Road would know a particular address, who the actual holder is. And the interesting thing about that is, even if they don't know, those people who are holding those coins may be afraid of moving their holdings. And the implication of this is that some of those big holders who may or may not have been, let's say the ones who were associated with Silk Road or drug dealing or other secret types of slightly shady operations, they may be unwilling or afraid to move their coins. So the reason I raise that is, if 5% of the coins have been lost, another large number, such as 5%, 10%, maybe even 20%, might be effectively frozen because the people who are associated with that account address are unwilling to move the coin because they can now maybe be traced. So that would make the illiquidity even more serious. I actually think that might be a bullish argument as well. So, before we move on to general questions about these comments, perhaps Adrian can say something about the lost coins issue.
Okay. Now, if coins are lost, they're lost forever. You may have read about a guy called James Howells, who's
Yes.
actually coming here shortly, who from Wales, who had $9 million worth of bitcoins on a hard drive, which he threw away in a council recycling tip. And of
That's a
course, he was
pretty
in the
extraordinary story, actually. So
It's
that's
a
£9
pro-
million worth of coins.
No, $9 million, which
I
is
see.
about four or 5 million pounds at the price at the time, I think. Well, or last month or so. Now, he was an early miner. In other words, he mined these things early on. So, there was no cost to him to produce these things. And he was amazed when he found out they were worth so much. And he looked everywhere and couldn't find his hard drive. And he realized he'd thrown it away. So he was interviewed by virtually all the world's TV stations, radio stations, newspapers, as an example of the dangers of losing bitcoins. Because, of course, once they're lost, they're lost. I met him about 2 weeks ago at a meetup, and he said he wasn't that concerned because what he learned in the process of talking to the TV stations and the newspapers is actually gave him a great idea for something else in that area. And he's now got venture capitalists want to give him lots of money to develop this new idea.
Wow.
I've no idea where it is. I will sign an NDA with him because he wants me to help him develop this thing. And he should be here shortly.
Well, if he happens to come on while we're still talking, we'd love to hear
Yep.
hear the story from him direct. But
Yep.
I'd like to because for me, I'm a little bit puzzled by the idea that they're lost forever. I understand that there are two sort of passwords, and that bitcoins in effect are a bit like having money in a locker, where a public locker, where the locker has two passwords. One is public, and whoever's involved in the transaction gets that password, and the other is private. If that's really the way it works, wouldn't it be possible if he could find his private passwords to reclaim his coins?
Oh, certainly. All you need is your private key. That's all you need. With a private key, you can generate the public key. So the private key is like the most important thing to have. And actually, what he lost on the hard drive was the private keys. Normally, what I do, for example, I print them out on a piece of paper and lock them securely.
So we're getting some distortion here. Maybe somebody can mute, please.
Okay. The most important thing is private keys. I print them out on pieces of paper and lock them in a safe safety deposit box, because that's all you need. In case my hard drive gets corrupted or gets lost, I have all my money on my private keys. And he actually did that, but he couldn't find the paper either. Weird.
So if he could find that paper, perhaps he can hire a remote viewer to help him find where the paper is. And,
Well,
regain
the thing is,
his coins.
he did a clear out of his house. I think his wife told him to. So he cleared everything out and threw stuff away.
Okay, great. Well, that's...
Michael, sorry, I do have to sign off.
yeah, just go ahead, just sign off. Just leave us a note. That's fine. Thanks for joining us. And that's great. If people want to sign off, I think the easiest way to do it is to simply type in that you're signing off. But Renu's gone now. I was going to give her a chance to ask one question, but she's actually gone. So I'm going to open this up to general questions at this point. And I think someone who hasn't spoken yet, Positive Deviant or Leanne, do you have a question or comment?
Sure, I've got a question.
Yeah,
Sorry, was that Leanne? Do you want to go ahead?
No, I'm just listening. It's very interesting. Yes, and I heard all that about that poor bloke.
Yeah, my question is that I think it is a revolutionary technology, and it's really interesting to see how it develops. But I think one of the big problems I see is it going mainstream, as in mainstream within the banking system. This is really a question about how can a banking system possibly accept something that's anonymous, where you have a large contingent of criminality that's laundering money through it. How is that ever going to happen?
Can I just say that's not actually true? There are a tiny number of people in the Bitcoin community, very, very small, who are criminals. The vast majority are ordinary people who are not criminals. And the largest criminality in any currency system is in US dollars. It's by far, it's a many times larger than anything on Bitcoin. It's just that the press always seem to play up this criminal element. And the other thing is not actually anonymous, it is pseudonymous, because as Dr. Bubb said, you are linked with your account number, with your account number on the blockchain. And therefore, it's much easier for authorities to trace people or criminals on the Bitcoin network than it is people who use cash or even banks. Banks are far more opaque than the Bitcoin system. So it's a very bad place.
Sorry,
it's a very bad place for criminals to work on.
Yeah, can we just go through an example of that, Hadrian? Because I think it might elucidate it for people. Is if I had a website and I was selling some kind of dangerous weapons, and somehow the NSA or drug enforcement or someone saw me doing that, they would see the transaction going through. Let's say I sold $1 million worth of dangerous weapons, and they knew that transaction took place on my website because they were tracking my website. They would at minimum know the address of that transaction. Is that right?
They would, yes.
What might they do to trace that back to a person?
Well, they can't do it unless that person uses that address to buy dollars or buy something else on the system. That's why, as you said, these things are frozen, because people who are afraid that they may be caught will do their best not to reveal who they are.
So if I'm Mr. X and I've just sold $1 million worth of dangerous weapons, then I'll have $1 million. Well, it'll be a number of bitcoins, but I'll have $1 million worth of bitcoins, which will have gone through the transaction mechanism, and
Yes.
people will be able to see that I'm associated with that. And if I start moving that money to try and buy a home in Spain or something, then there'll be a trail for a part of that.
There will be a trail, yes, absolutely. Very easy to find, yeah, which you can't on using cash or the banking system.
Yeah.
Can I just ask something here?
Sure.
If they transferred it to a smaller crypto, like Litecoin or anything, and then made their transactions in a smaller cryptocurrency, would that be possible to remain anonymous then?
Yes, because it's the same. All the cryptos are the same. All of their blockchains are public. So if you do a transfer, you can see the money or the coins moving, say, from Bitcoin to Litecoin. And the other thing is, the other cryptos are very, very illiquid. It's very, very hard to get your money out of these smaller currencies like Dogecoin or something.
Okay.
So, in terms of the government's use of or willingness to allow bitcoins to develop, it occurs to me that they're actually quite happy to see this, because it might be a way of sort of letting flowers bloom, knowing that some of those sort of illegal flowers that do bloom will in fact be easier to trace than cash transactions.
Certainly, yes.
So do you think that might be one reason the U.S. government and maybe the German government have so far been reasonably supportive of this innovation?
Yes, I mean, I speak with the government here in the UK, and the higher levels of government, people are very positive. They like it, they see its advantages. Privately, they say that. Publicly, they say nothing, because it's obviously, it is controversial.
Okay, I'd like to now, Hadrian, if I can play devil's advocate with this. There's another sort of related comment that I've heard. I don't know if you know who Catherine Austin Fitz is.
I do, yes. I've watched her videos.
Yeah, she has called Bitcoin's a Trojan horse. I- In fact, I should be more accurate and say she said it might be a Trojan horse. So maybe not, maybe it is, in her opinion. But what she sees as possible is that at some point the government may decide they want to launch their own official version of this currency. Something which they might find easier to run as a government than the current fiat currencies that exist. And what they might do in order to push forward with that would be to use something like the confiscated coins to crash the market, and then announce that we now have a new improved sort of gold-backed bitcoins, which will have the U.S. government or the German government or the New World Order behind it. Do you think that's possible?
No, because they fail to understand the key thing about the technology behind Bitcoin, which is it's decentralized, meaning whoever sets it up loses control. Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he is or she is, has no control at all in the Bitcoin world. Neither has Sonny Lee, who is the guy who founded Litecoin, because it's open source and because it's not, there's no center. Everybody has the code. I have the code in my computer. Anybody who wants to has the code. Because it's peer-to-peer, you've got thousands of people all over the world on their computers running the system. Therefore, it can't be a Trojan horse because it's open source. Everybody sees the code. And no government can actually create a decentralized crypto without losing control. Then it will no longer be a government thing. It belongs to the people who run the system.
Randy, do you have a comment?
Yes, I disagree with that. I think what one's got to do is think, A, what's the advantage of Bitcoin over fiat currency, or what's the disadvantages? And the first disadvantage I would suggest to you is that Bitcoin in particular has a maximum lifetime number of coins that will ever be produced. Allowing for the fact that some are lost or locked up, what it actually leads to is effectively a deflationary financial structure, i.e. that, or the other way to describe that is that people who get in first have a significant advantage over people who get in later. So that's a disadvantage. The second thing about, Bitcoin makes it frictionless to do payments. I would actually turn that the other way around and say that actually what Bitcoin has revealed is that the current payment systems are very expensive. Now, they're expensive not because they need to be, and actually you could argue that a centralized payment system could actually be cheaper than a decentralized one. But the reason that current payment systems are so expensive is because there's not been any challenges in the payment system. But don't confuse that as a need for cryptocurrencies. You could actually reduce the cost of payments quite significantly, even with the existing currencies. Look at things like mobile payments in Kenya, or some of the payment systems in the US, or things like Midpoint for doing international transactions. And actually, if you look at it in that way, including the bid-offer spreads and the time, would I actually use Bitcoin to do a big transfer from one country to another? No, because I can't even be sure that it will get there, or it will get there reliably, given the point about the Mount govt. The third thing is, can I use Bitcoin as a store of value? And can I use Bitcoin and receive interest on my deposits? One of the problems with that goes back to what I said earlier about it being a deflationary system. It's hard to create credit and pay interest in a deflationary system. So I'm slightly skeptical that Bitcoin in itself will, at its present form, be revolutionary. I think what it's more likely to do is force down the price of existing systems in fiat currencies.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comment, and I like it because you've picked up in that comment the functions of money, and this is from, amongst other places, from Dominic Frisby's book, where money has three main functions. One is a medium of exchange, which is something I think Bitcoins is pretty good at. The second thing is a store of value, and because of the volatility, that's been a problem. And the third thing is a unit of account. And I suppose Bitcoins is doing that in the sense that the other cryptos, which tend to be more volatile than Bitcoins, are often valued in Bitcoins. But most normal transactions, Bitcoins are just too volatile to provide a decent a unit of account measuring one's success and so forth. But none of what you've said, I think, Randy, rules out the possibility that Bitcoins could be used in a very specialized way, or some, maybe even a revised version of Bitcoins used to make international payments. If we can do something about the exchange risk. And then something else could be used alongside it as the store of value. In fact, I think James Turk has suggested using Bitcoins and gold together as a new way of replacing our fiat money system.
I'm not sure. I mean, there is other virtual currencies out there. There's one that's really old that people forget about, which is special drawing rights, SDRs. But the thing about it is, let's say I want to send money from the UK to the US. I want to send money in sterling, and I want to get it out at the other end in dollars. Why go through an intermediate step of converting it to another currency and having a second bid-offer spread I've got to cross over?
Well, I don't think you mind. I think the bid-offer spread is the problem. I don't think you mind as long as the bid-offer spread is tight enough. And in fact, I mean, I have a situation right now where I want to send money from, say, Malaysia to the Philippines. I have to first convert my Malaysian currency into US dollars, and there's a spread loss there. And then I convert my dollars into Philippine pesos, and I lose the second spread. So we already have that problem.
Yeah, okay, you're right. But if you were using any of the big currencies, you wouldn't need to do that. All the main crosses are very, very liquid, in the trillions of dollars a day. So dollar sterling, dollar euro, dollar yen, all those are very, very liquid.
You say that, and yet it costs, for somebody who's sending $10,000 from point A to point B, I think we just lost the call. Yeah. No, well, I'm getting the recording still. Is anybody on?
Okay. Yeah, we're here.
I've lost Hadrian. Hopefully he'll come back on. So, I'm sorry, Randy, can you continue your point while we see what he's doing?
But that's a problem with the payment system, or rather with the point that there haven't been many new challenges, or they're starting to be over the last couple of years, challenges in international payments. It doesn't mean that you need to get rid of payments and currencies. It just means that there's an opportunity for a challenger.
Well, actually, I hope Hadrian does come back on, because he's involved in a number of innovative new projects using Bitcoins and cryptos to do lots of innovative new things. And he thinks it's the single biggest area of innovation existing right now, partly because there's a lot of money that's willing to come into this sector. Anyway, at this point, because we seem to have lost Hadrian, if anyone else has questions or comments, please come on. Leon? Or Leanne?
No, not at the moment. It looks like Hadrian's writing to us, so
He's trying
No,
to
sorry.
he's coming back on.
My network went down.
Okay, well, we just said...
We have flooding here.
So, right, well, I think maybe we should talk about some of the innovation and the opportunities that you're seeing? Because I think this is a very interesting subject, Hadrian.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay,
why don't we start, in fact, because you mentioned it to me briefly yesterday, your B&B and your idea of having a sort of cyber innovation around there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, because the biggest need is education. Most people don't understand the crypto world. It's a very hard thing to get over. So I'm setting up a place here. I have a place we have 3 acres of land just on the edge of London with some nice spaces, and I'm setting up like a training center for crypto with workshops and so on. And more people are coming along to do it. Now, I've talked with the people at Ethereum who are developing the next generation of Bitcoin protocols. It's a very interesting group, and they may become here as well.
Can you say a little bit about how their new coin is different from Bitcoin's?
Okay, Bitcoin is a payment system. It's very good for that. Ethereum is much more sophisticated, where you can use it to set up a distributed autonomous corporation, which is like a company where all of the management is embedded in the software. So you've got a company which just has like employees and shareholders and other stakeholders, but no management. It's all embedded in the code. Bitcoin is an example of that. And and the enthusiasm and the development work going on there is enormous. There's going to be vast sums of money pouring into that space very shortly.
Terrific. So what does your B&B? It's more than a B&B, but what do you have there that makes it particularly well suited for cyber type businesses?
Okay, we're very close to a London Underground station. We're very close to the M25, the motorway around London. We have spaces which can hold up to maybe 1,000 people, a big barn. We have other halls, we have rooms, we have 10 bedrooms. So it's quite a useful space for that.
And do you have a lot of internet connections so people at the conference can use their own computers?
Well, that is, we do, although it's not the best connection at the moment. It's being upgraded. I have a house nearby where I've got very fast broadband with fiber optic. But here it needs upgrading, so we're working on that.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is when we do finish this, if I put it up on the web, I'd like to have some links from you so that people who listen to this podcast and want to find out more about what you're doing can follow those links and discover further details. Maybe, I mean, I know there's some other ideas that we were talking about last night, which we could go into as well, but I'd like to give the other two who are still on a chance to ask or comment further.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, obviously the market went up to, I think it's just above 1,200 start of December. And I remember thinking at the time, I would love to be able to short Bitcoin right now, but there wasn't, and it didn't seem to be able to be a means to do that. Can you comment on that at all, Hadrian?
No, there is no means to do that. No, it's too.
Yeah, I mean, and it, to me, yeah, I see that as a bit of a flaw because it's not really a two-way market, is it? You can only buy, you can't short.
That is true. It's very immature. It's very small. It's it's an experimental technology.
Well,
I mean, I run an exchange here, and it's all buying. It's all buying. There, of the 40, 50 clients I've had recently, one has sold. Everybody else wants to buy.
and how, how would you, what sort of technique would you use to assess the potential price or size of the Bitcoin's market?
It's very hard to say. It's people say it's like a very early stage tech company pre-IPO. which is why it's so volatile. It's most people still don't know much about it. It's still very, very small. So, and it's growing. But say if the price is what, $700 now, in a year's time it's not going to be $700. It might be zero, or it might be $7,000, or some people, or the Winklevoss brothers are saying $40,000. You just don't know. It's so small, and the upside potential is vast. The downside potential is whatever little you're putting in.
Okay. Well, I'd like to, at this point, maybe some of these were picked up by Randy earlier, but I'd like to mention the virtues and what I call the flaws of Bitcoins, in sort of systematically. The virtues, which have been mentioned, are that it can be an excellent payment system. It's quick. It's instantaneous. It can be very cheap, virtually free. It can be stored very easily. You don't have to have a huge bank vault or anything. There are some issues, of course, with protecting, which we mentioned, the risk of lost coins. But storage can be very cheap indeed, and very flexible as well. There's a limited supply. I see that as an advantage because it means people are not going to see their investments diluted away by too many coins being issued. So I think the strict top limit for Bitcoins is 21 million coins, of which right now I think there's something in excess, is it 12 million have been mined already? Maybe it's 13 million now. So if you multiply that figure by today's price, you'll come up with a number that looks something like 10 billion, a little under $10 billion right now. That's the market cap. And that is small in relation to what Mr. Bernanke is putting into QE every month. It is anonymous, but that's only to a degree, and I like your word synonymous or pseudonymous.
Yeah.
So that could be an advantage, but it isn't. It is not as anonymous as cash. Another advantage is a network of enthusiastic users, and many own the coins at lower prices, so they're out selling the concept. And as I mentioned myself, the Bitcoin is actually a unit of accounting for other alternative cryptos. And finally, I think actually you mentioned this to me yesterday, Adrian, which is a big advantage. How did you put it? It has to do with the robust technology behind the coin. Would you say more about that? Sorry, I think we've lost you. So, I mean the technology behind I'm going to speak for Hadrian until he can rejoin us. The technology supporting Bitcoins is very good, and it allows a lot of innovations on top of the basic coin use. Now I'm hoping he comes back on. I'm going to talk about the flaws of Bitcoins. I'll go through this now. Well, they are totally fiat or worse. There is no gold backing them. There's not even political backing for the coins. And there's no guarantee that anyone will step in and buy them if a lot of people want to suddenly sell. So I think the volatility could be potentially quite a lot worse than fiat. Crypto coins are very volatile. Everyone knows this. Because of the great volatility of price, they're not a very safe store of value, and they're hard to use even moving money because of the uncertainty over the exchange rate you ultimately get when you move into another currency. Now, one thing I see that's not often mentioned is that the gains that have gone to those people who bought coins early have gone to people who may not have somehow earned those gains. Yes, they were early adopters. Yes, they jumped in early. But all the gains have gone to a very sort of small group of computer geeks and early adopters. That may not be the best thing. Two more, which I think are big risks. One is the rising amount of energy that's required to mine the coins. I've done some estimates of this, and I estimate that something in excess of $250 million of energy is expended every year on mining coins. And it could be as high as $1 billion, because around $1 billion, the energy spent on mining the coins would be equal to the value of the coins out the other side. And I think a lot of people will keep mining coins until they're not making money and then stop. So if the whole world was breaking even on mining coins, then we'd be spending $1 billion a year on the energy. That's a big number. And that's energy the world loses and will never get back. The final thing is, I think the governments of the world can kill the demand at any time simply by imposing taxes or other restrictive measures on the coin. And we saw what happened when China banned them. And the price on the 5th of December 2013, just over a month ago, dropped by 54% in about one day. It did recover, but if all the governments did a concerted effort to kill the coins, they could really drive the price right down and break the confidence. So those are the virtues and flaws, and I think that's something worth having on this podcast. And I'd like to leave a little time for some further questions, and then if we don't have Hadrian back on, I think we'll probably shut this down. But first, if there are other comments or questions, I'm going to try one time here to bring Hadrian on and see if it happens. But PD, do you have any comments at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that Bitcoin's obviously is a completely new system, but I think if you're actually thinking about what an ideal currency would look like, I think there should be something within it that would deter people from holding large amounts, or at least some sort of mechanism. I think I've mentioned this before in the forum. So that there's a disincentive to hold larger and larger amounts. I'm not sure exactly what form that would be, but I think that's something that I would want to see in a currency.
Why would you want to see that?
Well, because the function, a currency, the function is a means of exchange, isn't it? And if you have people hoarding large amounts, then that's going against the purpose of the currency, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think you could argue that, if somebody has a large amount of a currency, that's a pool of capital that could then be invested in some fashion to allow other people to leverage their own business ideas. So are you saying that Bitcoins are somehow sterile in terms of the value of that wealth and getting invested or leveraged into other investments?
Well, I think really what I'm saying is, I mean, to me, I mean, I've not followed it that closely. It seems that an awful lot of people are getting into it simply because they think the value of the currency will rise. That's what it appears to me as if that's happening.
Well, I mean, that would be a classic...
whether or not that's the case, I don't know, but
That would be classic bubble behavior where people are buying because they think the price will go up, and the volatility in the currency, does maybe support that idea, but it's the progression has been pretty healthy in the sense that prices rise, they flatten out or correct, and then they rise again. So we've seen a number of those rises. There is no ability to leverage, as far as I know. You can't borrow against Bitcoin. So one of the things that kills most bubbles is banks get involved and provide debt against the bubble asset. And then when the banks start calling their loans, when the price drops, that pulls the rug out from under the price. So we don't have that dangerous dynamic going on here. And so perhaps that's why so far the rallies we've seen, we don't know about this latest one, but have been followed by even higher rallies later on.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting. I mean, there is there's some people that kind of look at Bitcoin as some sort of bubble or a Ponzi scheme, and it would have been, I think, quite interesting to see what Hadrian had to say to that sort of aspect of it.
Yeah, I think his guest may have arrived, which is perhaps why he's been unable to rejoin us, or his system may be down. But I think he gave us some great comments and thoughts there, and I think we've got a pretty good amount of information here. Leanne, do you have any comments, questions that you want to wrap things up here?
Well, I was just listening to what Positive Deviant said in terms of people are just jumping in, hoping they'll make money, and I have actually read people on that Talk Bitcoin or whatever it is, and the people that have been in it from the inception, that they think that the best thing to do is to try and use it for what it was meant for, and that was for buying and selling. And the only issue that I can see there is transactions and the time it takes to make a transaction. And of course, it's getting longer as it gets harder to mine.
Well, actually, the using the coins to buy something is very quick. Apparently, most if you want to send coins into an exchange and then trade them for something else, when you send them in to the time you can actually trade, the delay can be as short as 2 minutes. That's how long it takes for the exchange to confirm that you've actually got the coins that you claim you have that you're about to trade. And
is that because you've paid a transaction fee? Because it's taken
that's
some of my
Yep.
that's taken some of my Bitcoin an awful long time to get into my wallet.
Well, that's a different matter because there are two things there. One is if you need to reload the whole blockchain, from the beginning, then that's a pretty huge amount of data. So your computer is going to have to take on board all of those millions of transactions.
I use a online wallet, but
that's
so
a light wallet.
So really...
that wallet will presumably already have most of the blockchain and loaded.
Well, that I tried to download the blockchain, it was too ridiculous. So
that could take 24 hours. But what happens when you?
More than that.
Yeah, well,
with
it
me
depends
because
on.
I'm in the bush here.
Okay.
And my connection is very fast.
Yeah, I mean, the slower your connection is, the longer it'll take. But I have heard it could take 48 hours or longer in some cases. But when you're trading the coins on an exchange, that exchange will already have most of the blockchain, and it will be able to go back and use that existing blockchain information it has, only adding on the most recent stuff. Because what's actually happening, as I understand it, is the exchange, before it allows you to trade the coin, will go back and check and see that, in fact, the number of coins that you say you want to trade are coins that you've actually bought. That your address, your coin address, has actually bought those coins, and they'll also check to make sure you haven't subsequently sold those coins. So they can check. They can check all that data on their existing blockchains, and in fact, after 10 minutes, there's a new blockchain added, and that new blockchain will be a kind of stamp of approval that seals all the previous blockchains. There is a risk of this is the way that coin mining works, is that somebody kind of solves the algorithm, and that person...
yes, I'm aware of that.
And you can read about that more online, but essentially every 10 minutes, assuming there's no... two people don't solve it at the same time, which hasn't happened yet, but every 10 minutes the blockcoin chain is verified. So that means all the transactions that took place till that time have been agreed, and that's like a final verification that there are no disputes outstanding on the blockcoin chain.
Yes, and that's where I was coming from, is if it takes 10 minutes for that to be solved and you're buying a cup of coffee with Bitcoin.
Yeah. But I think, most transaction systems will already have the Bitcoin chain, apart from maybe the last few hours or whatever, on it. So they'll be able to very quickly verify that, in fact, you are the owner. I mean, you who are coming forward show up in their historical bit chain as the owner of coins. And I don't think we need to go into, there's a very good YouTube video, which I'll provide a link on this video. Now we're past an hour, and we're just over 1 hour now. So unless, PD, if you have a final comment, please jump in.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, look, thanks everyone who's participated in this call. All 6 of us, all 5 of you. Thank you very much for spending the time to chat with us. And thanks to those who've had to depart before the end of it. It's been a very interesting call, a lot of good content. I'll do my best to get this up on the web. And I hope you guys will consider joining a future call. I'm hoping to do one of these, about once a month, maybe more frequently. And I'm very open to hear from you and others what subjects you'd like us to cover. So once again, thanks very much. And please refer others to the call so we can have a growing community here to discuss these very interesting topics. So thanks all.